Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bring Back Focus, a podcast where we discuss focus, attention management, and how that impacts personal and professional growth. Today, I have with me Robin Singhvi. Robin is the founder of SmartQ. SmartQ is pretty smart, actually. It helps SaaS sales team deliver hyper personalized demos. This is one thing that I have seen a lot of teams struggle with. So I think it's solving some really cool, relevant problem. And personally, I've known Robin for now 4 5 years, more than that actually, 8 to 9 years, and been a great connect of mine. So, Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dipesh. I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so Robin, you and I think go back a long time, right? It's been
We
almost
do. 8 years actually, 9 years.
yes, and I've seen you go through various role changes, and you've moved countries,
That's right.
and there's a lot that has happened in the last 8 to 9 years, which is one of the reasons why I thought it'll be good to have you on the show because when you have so many transitions and the focus is something that definitely gets impacted. You were in a career, you changed careers, and that it really does take a toll on focus, and this is which is the topic of our conversation. So I would love
Yeah.
to get your thoughts on how you stay focused, how you make decisions, and how you do what you do. So yeah, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Dipesh. And yeah, you're right. I think at least since you've known me, there have been a lot of interesting developments in my life. I think we met first when I'd moved back to India in 2014. Took over the family business and tried to make sense of it, and tried to run a business in a country that I had no experience running a business in. A lot of things happened those 2 3 years when I was here. Moved back to the US, worked there. Now I'm back in India, and running SmartQ, right? And uh, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but the potential to move back to the US with SmartQ is seeming very possible and real. So I mean, I'd love to sort of talk through the things that I've been doing, that I've tried to do. I'll be honest that just because I'm on Bring Back Focus with you does not mean I'm an expert. I'm figuring it out as I go, just like I think most people are, right? So I'll try to be as honest and authentic as possible.
Great. And so before we go into all of that, you mentioned briefly about your background. Why don't you tell audience about your background? Go
Yeah.
Feel free to go as deep as you'd like to, and just share some of the
Yeah.
tidbits there.
Sure. So I'll kind of go in a reverse chronological order, right? So I've been in the enterprise SaaS space for about 12 years now. I spent most of my professional career in the US. I lived in DC, Denver, and Portland, Oregon at various periods of time. Uh, I played the role of a solutions architect or a solutions consultant in most of the startups that I worked at, which meant I was always at the intersection of sales and product, which worked for me because I, always liked interacting with people, be they prospects, clients, colleagues, or friends like yourself. And even though I have a background in computer science and I can code a little bit, I couldn't see myself spending my life doing just that. And that's why I think this type of a role really worked for me. Like you introduced me, I'm currently the CEO and founder of SmartQ. Uh, we we've raised a small seed round, and I think you explained the product pretty well, which is we're building a smart sales assistant that essentially helps B2B SaaS sales teams deliver hyper personalized virtual demos. We have a few pilot customers and are growing the team as we speak. The problem we try to solve there is that traditional training and cookie cutter demos are really ineffective, and sellers needed dynamic programs to provide so the breadth of information required, whether it is marketplace dynamics, evolving buyer needs, and competitive product offerings. So that's what I've been working on with SmartQ. Prior to that, the last company that I worked at in the US was called Welltalk, which recently got acquired by Virgin Pulse. Uh, I worked at a number of other startups as well, all sort of in the enterprise SaaS space. And educationally, I got my MBA from Willamette University in the US, and I got my computer science degree from here in Bombay, Bombay University, which is incidentally where I grew up. Do you think that's a good enough background?
Yeah, 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 more
Yeah.
than good. So thank you.
Okay.
I would like to see the reason why I like interviewing entrepreneurs or founders is because I'm not a founder obviously, but I've known people, and I know the number of hats that you wear. There is sales, there is
Hmm.
product, there is fundraising,
Yeah.
there is media, PR. There's just so many pieces there.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get lost in all of these that you forget time management. Like you just everywhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, sometimes when people think about entrepreneurship, I don't think they think about all of these. I think yes, people know about the challenges that it takes time to grow and all, but they don't realize the challenge, the toll it
Yeah.
takes on your mind and your focus.
Yes.
And I'm very impressed by how founders do that. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like as a founder,
Sure.
how do you manage that, right? How do you manage wearing these multiple hats?
Yeah. Yeah. And ironically, as a first time founder, these are all the things that I had no clue about either. Right. I was always on the other side of the table where I was an employee negotiating just for ESOPs, and I was like, well, this seems easy. And little did I know, right, that it was so much more than just building a cool product and trying to sell it, right? Like you said, there's so many aspects as a solo founder, especially as a solo founder, that you kind of need to wrap your head around and ensure that you're not sort of drowning on a day-to-day basis. And for me personally, not being reactive to things and trying to have things under my control, right? That's what I've been trying to do, especially for the past 6 to 9 months. Post the initial sort of craziness that anyways happens when you start something new. But post that, like once we started having some product, some client discussions, I tried to kind of take a step back and figure out, okay, how do I want to do this? So, some of the things that I try to do is during the week, I try and and some of it is also circumstantial, right? So a lot of my prospects and clients are in the US. So my client interactions really start in the evenings here in India, which allows me a lot of flexibility to plan my day. And so the way I try to do it is during the day. I'm most productive early in the mornings. Like you, I'm also a morning person. So my day starts around 6ish or so, and then the first 2 3 hours of my day, I start off, of course, with meditating a little bit and things like that. But I try and take my morning to focus on all the asynchronous work activities that I need to do, whether it is writing out the strategy for the week, or the tasks for the week, planning my week and my day, and then sort of prioritizing them. I don't use anything complicated. I have a notepad, and then I use Apple Notes and Apple Reminders. It kind of just works great for me because I'm in the Apple ecosystem. Post that is when I start getting a little bit more tactical. During my day, I try to kind of respond to emails, work on the product and the product team that actually sits out of India, and then try and take a couple of hours off in the afternoon. Um, Ideally, I would have loved if that were an afternoon nap. That isn't always a possibility. But it ends up being more like either I go out for a swim or for a walk or something like that, just so that I'm not always heads down in work. It's equally important to kind of step back from time to time. And in the evenings, really, it is working on client calls and client meetings and decks and stuff like that. And I don't know if folks will give me negative points for that, but all of my fundraising activities, so whether it is working on my investor decks or sending out or responding to investor notes, happens on the weekends. So I don't know if that makes my investors feel bad, but I actually hope it doesn't, because they will realize they may hopefully think that his priorities are right. He's prioritizing the customer and the product during the working hours, and then when he's not working, he's ensuring that he's keeping us happy as well. But let me pause there.
Yep. No, I mean, uh, you've broken it down really well. And I think, one of the things that I've been selling to customers for a while now. One of the things that I realized that it's so important to have your priorities clear, uh, because as a founder, and this is, I'm not a founder, as I said, but as a founder, I mean, if you get the customer right, and if you are able to do that, prioritize that, I think a lot of things follow. Product and customer, you are right. If I think that's prioritize, a lot of things follows, because if there are no customers, there's no funding, right?
Yeah,
There's no product, there are no customers. So yeah, I
yeah,
mean, that makes a lot of sense. What I what I also find interesting in your schedule is, you have those kind of blocks dedicated to some side of activities, right? Uh, Sometimes I struggle with that. Like, things mix up. I'll
yeah.
be doing checking emails in the, when I'm supposed to be talking to customer, and those things mix up.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that they do for you as well at times, right?
100%. Yeah,
And the schedule that you mentioned, I'm sure you face some challenges implementing that, and probably there are times when you kind of go off track. My question is, how do you bring yourself back on track? Because that's one thing that a lot of us struggle with. We have schedule, we start, and a lot of times we also maintain, but we can go off track at times. And how do you manage that? How do you acknowledge, and how do you get back on track?
yeah. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because uh, it's not rocket science, and it is not something that you absolutely, just because you have a framework, that you're always going to follow it. Life happens, and you have to adjust, or some things are going to fall by the wayside. But I think that we try to put a lot of frameworks into practice, but they don't always work. And I just like you mentioned, I'm always splitting between being ultra efficient and then just having weeks where I'm all over the place. Whether it is just no productivity, extreme distractions, no workouts, looking at or reading emails and responding to them when I'm not supposed to. But the good thing is that having this framework, having these sort of frameworks, that, hey, you know what, this is what I do in the mornings, this is what I do in the afternoons, this is what I do during the evenings and the weekends, allows me to sort of retreat back to a sense of familiarity and predictability. It may take time, but I know that I'll eventually get back to being productive sooner rather than later. And I think it's also important in general to not be extremely hard on yourself when you do fall off the track, right? It's going to happen. It's okay. We're all human. We're not robots. So, expecting us to always consistently follow that routine or schedule is unrealistic. And so, cutting yourself some slack, I think, is equally important. And I think that is something that I've sort of discovered and started to adopt only recently, like during the pandemic. But that's I think my philosophy, that always have a framework, always have these models, mental models, and then whenever you fall off track, know that you have them to go back to.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I like your point about having the frameworks. I was listening to, I'm sure you've heard of Cal Newport,
Yes.
the author of Deep Work. He has this podcast called Deep Life or Deep Question, something I'm not getting the
Mm.
name right. But in this, he talks about, one of the episodes is about time management. Time management is the most used, overused, abused term.
Hmm.
But, when Cal Newport talks about it, you take notice, right? So he says that at any given point in time, I make sure that I'm not thinking about what I should be doing. That framework should help me know that, if this is the time, then this is what I'm supposed to be doing, rather than me now trying to figure out, okay, now I have some free time, let me go back to my emails, or let me go back and see what I can do. And that resonated a lot with me. There are times when I have free time, and I'm like, okay, what
Yeah.
should I be doing right now? So, coming back to your point of having that framework will make sure that if it's afternoon or if it's evening, I have some free time, maybe, or afternoon I have some free time, maybe I do some reading or something like that. So
Yeah.
very relevant point there on the
Yeah,
frameworks.
yeah. I think Dipesh, we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into it, right? Because I think you called out the fact that these blocks of times that you sort of have for different things. So I try to do the same thing, right? So a few things that I tend to do to sort of religiously protect my time and my attention is on my phone I kind of use the DND or Apple sort of focus settings pretty much throughout the day. I ensure that my phone doesn't ring and that most notifications don't pop up. It's been working well for at least a year now, but to help with the deep work, right? Where that we spoke about. It does tick some people off because I don't respond to WhatsApps or texts immediately, or sometimes totally miss them. But hey, I mean, if it's urgent, they can always call me, right? I mean, there are a list of 20-25 people who are in my sort of phone book who if they call, the phone will still ring even in my DND settings.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I've been trying to do is I start sort of my wind down settings on my phone at 9:15 p.m. every night. Now, even though with Smart Queue I end up having a ton of late night calls and meetings, I think this wind down feature at least ensures that the brightness settings on my desktop and my phone are conducive to sort of relaxing. The notifications are minimal, and then even from the productivity standpoint, we spoke about having blocks. So that's what I have, right? I mean, instead of like, my day being regimented, I typically have like just 4 hour long blocks on my calendar for different things, whether it's email, for LinkedIn, client or prospect communication. Uh, and I don't know if it's ideal yet or not, but it definitely provides some structure to my workday and minimizes distractions when I'm trying to do some deep work. And like you said, I know that I've cut out 4 hours to do X, and if I get that done in 1 hour or 2 hours, that sort of gives me that free time to do whatever else I might have to, without feeling like I'm stuck in a schedule. Anyway, I just
Yep.
wanted to make that point.
No, that's a very valid point. And one of the frameworks. So I've over the past year, I've gone from managing like one or two people to I have now I had like 15, 20 people reporting to me.
Nice.
One of the things that I was struggling with was, just giving them time, because
Hmm.
most of them were reporting directly to me. And, I'd set up one-on-one weekly, but there are times when they need me urgently, right? So the framework that I had developed was, okay, you call, sorry, you, if it's not urgent, you send me an email, or you ping me. I'm not going to look at your email or pings. Like
Yeah.
I'm not constantly on those.
Yes.
But whenever I do look at it, I'll respond to you. But if it's urgent, call me. If I don't pick up, you know,
Correct.
I'll respond back. If it's super urgent and I don't pick up, call me twice. And that framework has kind of worked.
Yes.
Sometimes people are they I make it very clear that it's not because I don't want, with just that I'm protecting my time, so I'll be able to
Yeah.
be more efficient with you as well. But sometimes there have been cases where people have sent an email for an urgent thing, and I've not responded, and I'm like, why didn't you call me?
Yeah.
So those things happen, but I think having that framework has helped me protect my time as well, because otherwise it's very easy to pull, to just get derailed from what you're doing, and just it the task switching has huge cost. So yeah, just on
Yeah.
that, how a framework that I try to follow.
I love it. I love it. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think there's more pros than cons to it. So I think it's okay. Like, folks will sort of fall in line eventually, and I think folks should realize that like you said, it's not anything against them. It really is a way of ensuring that you're most productive throughout the day.
Yep. I think one incident again, I was so one of the things that sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I relate these, like Google has digital well-being,
Yes.
Apple has its own, and I
Yeah.
sometimes when I think about it, it's like it's like for lack of better analogy, it's like a drug peddler trying to sell rehabilitation to me.
Right.
Which it's like you've been so used to this, and I mean it helps, no doubt. But how do you manage your systems and phone? And we'll come to phone. Phone is the most common, the most, what do you call it, the most visible thing that we see.
Yes.
But even your laptop, and how do you manage digital distractions?
Yeah, I think I spoke about it a little bit, right? The way I try to do that, and I think for me, more than the tool, whether it's my phone or my laptop, I think it's the notifications that
Mm-hmm.
that really play havoc when you're trying to do work, right? And so by design, I think it was about a couple of years ago, I read a post on Medium on how to disable all of your notifications and how to set them up one by one to ensure that you sort of make the most of these devices that you have, right? And so I think for like I said, right, for the last year, my phone is always on DND. Because when I started 2 years ago, there were like things that I was like, okay, these notifications I want notifications from my bank, I want notifications from here and there, but I realized over the past year that no, I don't want them. When I want them,
Yep.
I will find them. Like I will make them work for them. So as a blanket, my and this I think this is a recent sort of feature that Apple brought in, the focus, right? They have a personal focus, work focus, blah blah blah, and I only have one focus, and in that focus, nothing rings, nothing buzzes, only urgent calls come through. Even text never sort of ping me or disturb me. So I think what I've tried to do is I have purposefully tried to make the devices work for me rather than the other way around. Right? When I want to know who are the people who have sent me a note, whether it's email or text or WhatsApp, I will go into that specific application and then make it work for me. Like for me, that's actually, to be honest, that has worked really, really well, especially over the pandemic when folks have experienced sort of blurring lines between work and work-life balance. Really, you never know when to stop, when to end, because you're sitting there watching TV or you're having a meal and your phone buzzes. And inevitably, you're going to look at it, distract yourself, not give attention to the person or to the meal. And for all intents and purposes, you're probably also not doing a great job responding to that text or that email on your phone, right? So for me, the thing that's worked the best, and I tell that to everyone, like anyone who asks me, I'm like, just turn off all notifications. It does not matter. Right? It just does not matter. Like urgent things will find a way of coming to you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. When I tell people that I have all my notifications off, it
Yeah,
a lot of them don't kind of believe that or don't want to do that themselves.
yeah,
But one question that I'll ask, and I've gone through this, I've turned off all notifications.
yeah,
There is a phase when after you do that where it's because we want to see the applicability, and we also want to make sure people take something out of it.
yeah.
How do you, after you turned off all the notifications, there must have been few months at least where you would have, like your mind or would have craved some of these notifications.
Yes,
Did you check those apps more than you would normally do, because now notifications are gone, but
yeah,
your mind is still habituated to
yes,
looking at those apps? So
yeah,
how
yeah,
did you get
yeah.
out of that, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because yes, you are right. I think we agreed at the beginning of this call that these things are addictions, right? And just like with any addiction, you have these withdrawal symptoms as soon as you don't have that dopamine kick, right? And I was no different, right? So there were times when I'm like, okay, I need to check my phone, even though there's nothing, and then I kind of did more of that. But I think I realized that once you do that, as soon as you engage yourself in other more productive activities, and it's not just work wise, it can also be outside, whether you're working out, whether you're going out for a walk or whatever it is, Now, because your phone is not buzzing, that 20-minute, 30-minute, hour-long walk that you take actually becomes more mindful, because over a period of time, the phone's not buzzing. You're not looking at it as much as you did, and just like any habit, it is about cultivating a habit. Uh, some small things that I did during the day, I would actually put my phone away from me, away from like an arm's length. Doing that allows you to just automatically creates a little bit of inertia between you and trying to access things that may or may not be relevant at that moment in time. And now it is ironic because my wife Swati, she will tell me that I think we've switched personalities, because initially you were the one who's always on your phone, who's always, whether it's required or not, looking up things on your phone, and here you are telling me to put my phone away, right? And your phone is just somewhere where nobody knows, and I'm telling you that, hey, this person is trying to get in touch with you. Can you actually pick up your phone and respond to them? So it's an interesting 360 degrees. But I think this whole self realization for me started only in 2014, or maybe a little bit earlier. That's when you and I think got introduced, and I had just moved back to India, because I think at that point in time there was a lot happening, right? And I was being pulled in 100 different directions, and just reacting. And that's when I tried to figure out. I tried really hard to figure out that, hey, what do I need to do to take back sort of control over my life? Or I think your podcast is really well sort of titled, like, how do I bring back focus and do things that I really want to. And so it's been an 8-year journey now, and I'm still a student without a doubt. But I think there have been more things that I have gained from these experiments, really, than I have lost.
Yep. And I mean, for audience, if they take nothing away from this podcast, just one thing that if they implement would I think give tremendous results. And I've seen that is just turn off notifications.
I agree. Yeah.
You cannot, you just cannot see I mean, there is no parallel to the impact that it can have on your focus. Robin, I've been off notifications for a while.
Yeah.
But recently, so my mom is obviously a newbie on the phone,
Yeah.
and she's trying to figure out. And when I see her phone, that's when I realize what havoc notification. Like, she has, at any given point in time, she
Yeah.
has like 35, 40 notifications there. And I look at those notifications. There are Chrome notifications, 15 of them, right? There is YouTube just because. And I asked her that, have you done something? Like, no, I just go and see these things, and suddenly I see there is something popping up.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how to turn this off. And I obviously went ahead and turned off a lot of her notifications. She got angry when I turned off WhatsApp notification. But that's the thing, right? And they become so smart over time, those notifications, that, hey, you might be interested in this based on your activity. You might be interested in this. It's just, I mean, so this is a long point just saying that, just turn off your notifications.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, right, Dipesh, because I think the origin of these notifications or whatever was obviously in the best interest of folks, right? Hey, you know what? We will contextually sort of notify you when we think there is something of relevance to you on this device. But over a period of time, it's just become a blatant, advertising real estate that folks are using indiscriminately, right? And instead of it being contextual and for you, it really is distracting and meant to keep you, to keep giving you that dopamine kick, right? And never let you kind of step away. So it's a little bit sad of how something that was supposed to enhance productivity has ended up totally destroying it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke about phones, devices. We spoke about your system, right? That was, I do want to move on to something like, you spoke about phones, but are there any other tools that you use to, make sure that you're on track? You kind of are doing what you're doing. Are there any other tools that have been very helpful to
Sure.
you?
Sure. Just because I'm like a little bit anal about organization and stuff like that, we'll kind of bucket it into two pieces, right? One is tools that I use professionally, and then tools that I perhaps use personally, which I think also help from a professional standpoint. But from a professional standpoint, I think I spoke about using Apple Notes, and one of the reasons I love using Apple Notes, there's no notifications. There is no notifications in Apple Notes, and I might be
That's
making myself right. Have
Are
you
you
thought
sure? I
about
mean,
that?
I'm not on Apple, so I wouldn't know, but that's interesting.
Hey, you know what? It might be that because I've turned off all my notifications, and I have no idea whether Apple Notes has notifications. But
But good. I mean, if
but
it's working for you.
yeah, it is, and I might be kind of making myself a pariah here. But I tried using Notion, but I think it's just too complicated for me. It feels like it's forcing me to change my frameworks to fit into Notion's workflow. So
You're not the
Notion
only one
doesn't work
thinking
for
that way,
me.
by the way. You're not the only one thinking
Okay,
that way.
good.
I mean, I
Because
feel
like
the
if I'm on
same.
Twitter, I feel like a pariah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead,
And
sorry.
then I think just to organize all of my work tasks, I end up using a tool called ClickUp. So actually, I use it to organize sort of all of my tasks, personal and professional. It allows me to sort of manage everything in a single place. And then one tool that I really have gotten a lot of value out of work-wise in terms of productivity is called Mixmax. There's a ton of tools like that, email productivity tools, but for me it just seems to work. It keeps my client communications over email in sync and sort of automatically reminds me to reach out to people who haven't responded to me after a set number of days. This single feature alone has kind of made my email productivity so much higher because I don't have to be like, okay, I've sent this email. Now I need to go into another app to set up a reminder of when I need to follow back up with this person. I literally just send a note and then forget about it until Mixmax sort of reminds me that, hey, you know what, this person hasn't responded. Um, um, Interestingly, I actually see myself depending less and less on a CRM because of this. And I don't know if I've found a CRM I really love yet. So if you or the listeners know of one, I'm all ears. Uh, and then, yeah, I actually just started using the new Text app. I think it's still in beta or something like that. But it syncs all of your communication across channels, whether it's email, LinkedIn, Instagram, blah, 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 all of your channels, right? I'm still undecided if it's the best option for me in terms of like aiding my productivity, or does that sort of create that information overload, which we always try to avoid. But I think it has promise, right? But that's really it from a professional standpoint, and maybe you'll notice that I'm actively trying to reduce the number of tools that I try to use. Right, there was a time when I was using all the cool tools out there to sort of quote unquote stay organized and productive, but to me there is a very real danger of you getting consumed by your own productivity cesspool. You know, but that's from a professional standpoint. I think personally, especially over the past 2 years, two things that have really, really, really helped me is one is the practice of Vipassana, and I can't stress enough how helpful it is. When we are talking about trying to improve our focus, trying to be able to do deep work, uh, Vipassana for me has been a huge, huge help, and the reason being, just I think for readers, Vipassana is a meditation practice, right? And it's basically, the goal is to allow you to see things as they really are. Vipassana is one, art of living is another. Like, I mean, there's a ton of these. They're all practicing that same non-sectarian technique, and the objective is sort of self-transformation through self-observation, right? It really focuses on allowing you to find that connection between mind and body, and through sort of observation based self exploratory journeys to your mind and body. That's I think a complicated way of saying that it's a meditation technique. And the way it works is you actually go off on a 10-day reset where there's no phones, no television, actually no communication at all, verbal or body language or anything with any of the other participants there. And it's very very stark and very revolting to the body because we are used to these stimulations day in and day out, and to take 10 days out and remove all distractions, remove all stimulation. The first 2 3 days are kind of just really revolting to the body, but post that it really helps you kind of calm down, let your mind calm down, or like I think Naval says pretty well. It's like, how do you kind of go into debug mode on your monkey mind? How to calm your monkey mind? And that's kind of what Vipassana helps you do. So I discovered this during the pandemic in 2021. I went on 10-day retreats here close to Bombay. And then since then, for old students who kind of done this 10-day, they also have a 3-day session for regular practitioners. So I've been trying to do that at least once a quarter. So I think especially in today's, high stimulus world, taking these sort of drastic actions is unfortunately necessary to reset. So that I think has been amazing for me and has worked really, really, really well for me. I cannot emphasize enough that folks should take up a practice like this. I'm not saying take up a Vipassana. I'm not saying take up art of living. There's a ton of these schools of thoughts, but definitely consider them if you're on this journey of taking back control and allowing yourself to focus the way you want to and live life the way you want to.
I think that's amazing. I've heard a lot about these meditation techniques, or going on a 3-day, 5-day, 10-day camp, and that idea has intrigued me. But what made you take that step, and how were the first couple of days there? You mentioned that it's your body's revolting, but what is that revolt like? Like, what did you find yourself doing in the first 2 days, let's say?
Sure. So to answer the first part of your question, I think the pandemic, just like everybody else, took a significant mental toll on me, and I needed a way to step away from it all, right? From that constant barrage of news and constant barrage of information, sometimes misinformation, and hearing all of these stories about people suffering and the system sort of collapsing. It just kind of really brought me down, and I knew I needed to do something drastic because just locking myself up in a room was not going to do it. And my yoga teacher actually put me onto it. She said that I think you may want to consider it, and I was like, at this point in time, I'll try anything. So I went into Vipassana with not a whole lot of background on how stark it is going to be. But I went there, and the first thing you do is actually you deposit your phones, and they have a session where they tell you that, okay, after this session, you are not to speak, you are not to make eye contact, and you're not supposed to, kind of in any way try and communicate with anyone. I was like, okay, sure, no problem. Sounds okay. Like, I mean, there have been times when I wanted to be an introvert and I felt I was great. But I think you don't realize how much you have been conditioned to always wanting stimulation. That as soon as stimulation is taken away from you, your mind does not know what to do, right? You asked about like, how is it for the first 2 days? There were times when I used to just turn in my bed and reach out to nowhere, just hoping that there was a phone. And you're like, oh, it's not. And then, you're like, okay, what do I do now? So you kind of, like, there were times when I just, because you couldn't talk to anyone, I would just like walk up and down in my room, because I was like, all right, all this sort of anxiety, I need to figure out how to release. And then, of course, there are these guided meditation sessions that allow you to calm your mind down, like have practices that allow you to just kind of step outside of your mind and just observe your thoughts and feelings. And which is not something that we do on a regular basis, but we should, because that's part of becoming less reactive and more proactive to what you want to do and how you want to do them. Um, so the first 2 3 days is just a cycle of anxiety, your body and your mind really wanting all of those stimulation, whether it's noise, whether it's touch, whether it's the light of a phone or a laptop. But once you get past that, and it's also a known um, uh, fact at these Vipassana centers that day three is the worst, when a lot of people actually opt out and they just leave because they're like they can't take it anymore. But if you actually stay past that hump of 3 days, that's when it starts to really sort of kick in and be really powerful, because your day really is about 10 to 11 hours of meditation, and that's it. And like literally just sitting down and observing your thoughts. Sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world. But once you do get to some semblance of being able to do that, like I don't think, like, even after 10 or 20 sessions of Vipassana, you can actually master that, because, you would kind of achieve nirvana if you did. But even the worldly benefits of just being able to, get to that discipline, or that ability to observe your mind without reacting, like without reacting to happy thoughts or sad thoughts, I think is really powerful. Every time I've come back from these Vipassana sessions, I feel like for the next 2 3 4 months, I'm a whole different person. And I think, my wife said that to me as well, that you come back in a Zen mode, and the the world sort of pulls you back in, but that Zen effect lasts for about 3 or 4 months. And that's why, maybe you should do it at least a quarter, so that you stay Zen for as long as possible. But whether it is work wise, being able to think more strategically and more with a lot more clarity, or even in personal life where you don't let a lot of small things affect you. I think practices like Vipassana or just meditation, like use Headspace, use Calm, whatever it is, right? Whatever floats your boat. During the week, when I'm not doing these sessions, I use Headspace. Like that's how I start my day. I use 30 minutes of Headspace, and that's good enough, right? So I think if anything, I would say that folks should just take 10 minutes out of your day and then work your way up. With the always on nature of our lives today, the ability to disconnect, reset, and sort of rejuvenate is the need of the hour for most people. Just figure out that one thing, and I have a hunch that a lot of other things will automatically get prioritized because you have clarity of thought.
That's wonderful. You've really made me interested now. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, you should. You should, and there's centers in the US as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned Headspace, right? I think if you listen to the story of Andy Padicom, who founded Headspace, had a kind of of course he was a monk and he had a very intense journey compared to what you just mentioned, but that's how he got into the mode that he got into.
Yes.
But no, thank you for that. And for the tools, I'm going to add for audience, I'm going to add those tools in the show notes so people have access to that. Yeah. What I think, so we spoke about system, we spoke about tools, we spoke about meditation, which I think was very, very interesting. I really like that piece. Now, and we spoke about the phone as well, specifically, but if you have to describe your relationship with your phone right now, what would it be? How would you describe it?
I mean, I think I'm like most other people, right? I have a love-hate relationship with my phone. It is most certainly an addiction, and I am guilty of relapsing to a lot of my old habits and mindless scrolling more often than I care to admit. I think it's certainly less than it was a few years ago, but a far cry from where I'd like it to be. As recently, I think as a week ago, I know that I've been looking at my phone much earlier in the day and much closer to bedtime than is good for me. So the relationship, I think, like most relationships in life, is a work in progress. it has its good days and bad, right? Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, as long as it's not an abusive relationship, I think that's
yeah,
pretty much
correct.
pretty good. Now, second, and I think I probably know the answer to that, but
Hmm.
what is that one thing that you did in the last 6 to 12 months that has really, like, one decision that you took that has really changed a lot of other things for you? One big
Uh,
decision or small that
yeah.
has had a huge impact.
Yeah, so like you guessed, right? Going for Vipassana obviously was a huge thing that I did that helped. But I think if I have to think of something else that I did, really it was starting SmartQ.
Okay.
The level of a learning or really your learning curve when you start something up of your own is so wild that it kind of forces you to brutally prioritize and make sure that you are identifying things and tasks that are critical, because if you don't, you are bound to fail, right? I mean, we discussed this. There are 1,000 things that a founder has to do at any point of time in the day, and if you're not able to prioritize, if you're not able to put your head down and do that work that you really need to do at that point in time, it can become really overwhelming really quickly. So yeah, I think just the fact that I took that plunge, I think has helped me grow personally when it comes to being able to build on my practice of um prioritizing and improving my sense of focus. Right? I think so. So those are the two things that I think really did help.
Great. What is it that you do that you think 95% of people don't, and which has been very helpful for you?
Maybe this is off, but I don't think I'm better than 95% of the people. Maybe I'm just like them. I'm like most other people. So I don't know how many people do Vipassana. I would say that's one thing that is a little bit
Mhm.
out of
And
the
just to give you
ordinary.
context,
Yeah.
you did not think of yourself better than 95% people. That, like, maybe that one practice, uh, maybe that's Vipassana, but there's one practice or one habit that you follow that others don't. Most others you think don't.
Uh, Yeah, so I mean, the 30 minutes of using Headspace every morning, I think
Hmm.
is a practice that is very dear to me, and I try and do it religiously. I think it's extremely valuable and helpful. I would think that that's something that I don't know. I know a lot of people do meditate. I don't know how many people do it.
I think I would
How,
tend to agree with you. I don't think 95%, and 95 is just a random number, right? But I
sure.
think most people don't. I would agree with that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yep, that's helpful. Thank you. Last question: what is that one focus or productivity tool that has not yet been developed that you think might be really helpful?
I like that question a lot. I don't know if I can answer that directly, but I've been thinking about this a lot recently, right? That trying to have this tiff with our devices and things like that. It's like, what would be my ideal scenario is what I've been thinking of, right? That forget about the phone, the laptops, all of these productivity tools. I feel like my ideal situation would be where I'm living perhaps by the beach. I'm self-sufficient, and all I want is a landline, no cell phone, and maybe 5 hours of electricity and internet in a day. I feel like if I can achieve that, that would essentially self-correct all of the things that I think are wrong with my current productivity practices. I don't know if it's possible, but hey, we can all dream, right? And I don't know if perhaps someone can build something to enable that. I mean, everyone's talking about remote work and whatnot, but how about only 5 hours of work a day, where it's like you have to go into a shack and pick up that landline if you ever want to talk to someone and do your work and kind of go back to your sort of disconnected self.
Yep. And we underestimate the power of how we accommodate or adapt to these things, right?
Yes.
We think that we won't, but you will be surprised by how we can like we adapted to pandemic. I mean,
that's true.
Like the world went from working in office to remote like overnight, literally.
Yes.
So we adapted to that. So I'm sure we'll adapt to this as well.
Yeah.
No, I think those were all the questions that I had. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you would have liked me to ask? And also, what do you want to leave audience with, and how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So I think the thing that I'd like to, if folks took nothing away from our session, the only thing that I would say is that there's a lot of these catchy sound bites and advice on Twitter and LinkedIn. But try and tune those out, because I think they just end up making you feel kind of middling. But honestly, just do what works for you, right? If there are things that I wholeheartedly recommend, just learn how to actively disconnect, whether it's 10 days or 10 minutes out of your day. Just that, just take that out of your day. If you're able to do that, I think you'll go a long way in building up your practice of focus, right? And yeah, I mean, I would love to hear from folks. Continue this discussion. You can find me on LinkedIn, my first name, last name, which is Robin Singhvi. You can obviously also just email me at robin@getsmartq.com. And yeah, I am really interested and look forward to hearing from folks.
All right. Thank you so much, Robin. It was great talking to you. Some amazing insights there. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll be in touch. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Dipesh. Bye-bye.